Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of One Vision, the FinTech Fuse. This is Theo, your host for today's episode. Joining us on the show today is Elias Kruger, Managing Principal at Long Range AI Consulting. Welcome to the show, Elias.
Thank you, Theo. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to this conversation.
Well, it's great that we can actually find proper time
Yes.
to talk instead of being in a really loud conference hall or passing by in a hallway, which we did both.
Yes.
But let's start with before you do what you're doing and before you and I had a chance to meet earlier this year,
Yes.
you had spent a considerable amount of time at
Yes.
a bank. And on your LinkedIn profile, it caught my eye, it was interesting. You say your mission is to enable responsible data-driven decision-making and foster a culture of innovation and learning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is, I know, I understand what you're doing right now, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know, what did you do at Wells Fargo before you started your company? And has that always been part of what you were doing? And how does that transition happen?
Yeah,
It's a
I think
long question.
no, that's great. I think it was always part of my DNA. I was always somebody who liked to do things differently, to pay attention to what was shifting, to track. In some ways, I always kind of had a mind of a consultant or somebody who's doing that even before this happened. But at Wells, I started in finance, so really tick and tie numbers, which I hated, but it was a great school to learn detail orientation, to learn
It's important.
very important. I learned a lot about building, mad spreadsheets that I still use those skills today, and just the importance of really double checking everything that you do. So eventually, I did move into the data world, data analytics, and now this is going to age me a little bit because this was like 2009 is when that happened. And there was no talk of, there was some talk of analytics, but there was definitely no talk about AI, machine learning. All of that was kind of out of the picture. There was an emerging field called data mining back then, which I remember reading about and saying, "Man, this is really cool. Like you can actually, start predicting stuff." And we started talking about logistic regression, statistical modeling, and all of that. So I came into the very beginning and really started growing within the company on that area. First as an analyst, just going to the database and kept, getting data for people, answering questions, eventually to building more sophisticated analysis, to building predictive models, and that's really when kind of I thought the fun really started, and went on to then eventually start doing machine learning. I had the privilege of actually building with a vendor the first deep learning model at Wells Fargo in 2017. That was quite an experience. Funny story though is that it just never went into effect because we couldn't productionize it. It was too much for our data centers, and we weren't doing anything in the cloud back then. So that was an interesting experience. But did that, and then eventually got into management, had a team, and then my last stint there was really leading kind of the young professionals into it, which was my favorite part of my career, was kind of seeing new people come in and seeing them grow. I don't think there's anything nicer than seeing those light bulbs. I know in education you get that a lot, but sometimes at work you do, and seeing them grow and just like become. I mean, they're always very smart people. That was really fun. So yeah, that's what I did before I did this.
I am jealous. So I did something similar to part of what you were saying about data mining. I'm dating myself also. This was back in, I wanted to say 2003 maybe, around 2003, 2005. That was when I got into data warehousing, looking at big data, looking at how do you remember those really
Yeah,
boring ATL
yeah,
pooling reports. And at that time, everything was running in batches, right? So
yes,
it's once once a day, end of the day batches. And if business send in a particular request and say, "Hey, we want this," and you have to bring the group together, you have to figure out how you can create it. Make a long story short, it was never a real time turnaround. You
right.
want a real time query? No, 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 we don't do that. Batches reports, that is. That was back in 2003.
Mhm.
Whew, yes. things have changed quite a bit since
Absolutely.
then. And now you've started your own company. It's been a year. How's that been?
Oh, it's been quite a ride. It's been fun to get to know new people, to work on. There's one thing that I never really enjoyed about working in a large company, which was how you get pigeonholed into a function, into a very specific job. And there's a reason for that. Anything in a bank with 2 trillion in assets, as Wells Fargo was probably a little more now. It's complicated. Even a simple query, so you need that specialization, and there's a point to it. But I hate it because I was more of a, I really like broader. I have broad interests. So even as though I was supposed to be a data guy, I wanted to talk to marketing. I wanted to understand what was going on in learning and all of that. So becoming a consultant allowed me to do all that, to go to conferences, get to meet people that do all kinds of stuff, get to meet startups that are like the future of fintech and banking. And so really enjoyed that part a lot, and continue to do. I love conversations like this, and I know I probably wouldn't do that if I was still at Wells. So
Yes, that is the positive side. Feels like the whole forest opens up for you and
yes.
you can get to venture out. Taking a look back at what you were doing at Wells, right, for
Mm-hmm.
quite a while
Yeah.
through the journey, what were some of the things that you were trying to solve back then? I chuckled when you were talking about spreadsheets, um, that you see now AI can potentially address, and vice versa. What things that you think people are trying to do that you think that AI really will never try to solve or should solve?
Yeah, I have. I mean, there's the table stakes, right? Reading thousands of emails, being able to summarize, being able to write emails faster. Believe it or not, I mean that can make a difference. I remember how much time I would spend just trying to put the right words into, a conversation with an executive, something like that. So I'm very grateful for that, and I think that just saves a lot of time. But the key one that I have seen and experienced now as a consultant, like I really didn't expect, is on the coding side. So coding productivity for me shot up like 4 times, and I want to take a pause here because I want to differentiate that from vibe coding. Vibe coding is somebody who never coded and kind of talk to ChatGPT and they run a
They come up
code
with the
and
scripts. Yeah.
and I'm not saying that that's bad or wrong, but it's not magic. It's still not magic. But I think knowing coding is still important. So to me, I see myself as an augmented coder. I know what to ask. I know where to check, and I just don't want to spend hours and hours typing all that code. And I can just work with a code agent, or I like Claude. I mean, people work with
Mm-hmm.
different ones, but I like Claude Code a lot. And what happens is more possibilities open up. So even right now, I'm working with a client, and I thought, hey, I would love to represent this on a map, right, of the U.S. with all dots and that. And I thought I wouldn't even think about that a few years ago because I knew how long it would take for me to do that. But now with AI, I can do that in a reasonable amount of time. It still take me, a few hours, but it's like it's not days. And so suddenly there's all these new possibilities, and you can do a lot more. So excited about that. Things that AI will not solve. It still, the workplace is a place filled with humans and relationships. AI will not solve politics. It will not solve good or bad relationships. Jerks will still be jerks. Great people will still be great people to work with. And that will stay with us. That is not going to go away. And I don't really see how AI, except for maybe creating more possibly inequality and differentiation between workers, those that can do things with AI and those that can't. But I don't see AI kind of solving for that at all. So yes, that will continue to be an issue.
Those are uniquely human things, right? And good or bad, I do miss that. So it's not totally related to AI, but when I transitioned from corporate to like being on my own, right? The one thing I do miss was I miss, as much as I hated my commutes, I miss being in the office. You know, you will see people, you make plans for lunch, and you know, you hang out after work. That relationship, it's not something that any machine or any digital world can replace.
Yes.
And that's the one thing I don't think AI would change or solve it, but I am worried that it will make us a little bit more inward looking.
Yes.
And to reduce some of the chances that, you know, we have in chatting. And I don't know. I have a mixed feeling about it. I do love Cloud. I think it's an amazing tool. I've been playing with it and look forward to spending more time with that. But it saves a lot of time. I absolutely agree. Like things that I wouldn't even think about doing, as you say, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. It takes time. But now it's like, oh, okay. It's a good helper.
Yeah.
It's a very good helper. So looking at the last year or so that companies are deploying AI tools, and 2025 in particular has been a very odd year of companies coming out and saying, you know, we're doing headcount reduction. We are becoming more efficient. We are exiting staff, if you will, all under the banner of efficiency improvement because of AI too. Now, I do question whether or not it is truly because of that. It's just an easy excuse. Regardless, I do feel like a lot of companies are coming out and looking at how do we use this technology to make things more efficient rather than how do we use this to truly change how we think about things and create something new. I wanted to hear what you think about that.
I have a few thoughts. I want to maybe differentiate a few things first that I feel like, especially Fortune 500 companies are laying off a lot of people. There's just undeniable. I am probably the result of that. But anyways, it is what it is. And I think that that's not caused by AI, but AI has become an accelerator and sometimes an excuse. So what you have is business that were already very inefficient that decided, okay, let's start to cut, to do more with less, right? Every company does that, and now I feel like there is this moment that CEOs realized, hey, there's this AI thing, we can tell investors, they'll get excited, and we can do this. One thing that to me was just key transformation. I do follow a few influencers in the area. Ethan Mollick, a professor from UPenn, is one of the guys who first wants to really kind of start understanding the impact. There are many others, but he said something that was really key and I think really applies here, which is no business will kind of cut themselves into success. In other words, you can't beat competition by simply cutting your staff. You have to innovate with AI. You have to grow with AI. You have to find, if you decided that you need 5 people instead of 10, you then now need to figure out what those 5 are going to do. And you might even have to hire another 5 to really beat the competition, because guess what? Everybody else has access to those tools, right? So I think that is where I see some opportunity, because there will be new jobs. And I think overall, just like we didn't have IT departments, 30 years ago, and now, it's 20, 30% of businesses' budgets, I think we're going to see something similar with AI. There will be new jobs. There will be an opening. There's new things that you can do. So now, with that said, I also think a lot systemically. There will be a lot of losers in the short term. And it's happening. It might happen faster than other technologies, and that's where we need to have a conversation about this sooner. We can't wait to the next presidential election. I can bet that AI will be a point of conversation in the next election. I have no doubt, but I really wanted to see it happening now. In fact, even in the U.S., let's say the next congressional elections, and then in other countries, presidential. It needs to start happening. We need it as a society to start talking about it.
I cannot agree more. I feel like in past quote unquote transformations or changes, right? Whenever we introduce new things, there's always a corporate message that says, well, the world is changing. We are changing the way we work. And you lots need to figure out how you can update your skills or be gone. But it was a lot of responsibility being placed on people that are working, that's pushing them to keep learning and relearning, which is all fine, but to an extent, right? What we're seeing right now is changing a lot of fundamentals of how things could be done. And then the access of the ability to learn. You need the tools, you need the time, you need the venues, you need a lot of that in addition to resources. Depends on what you want to get into. And it's a much larger conversation than asking people to go learn something new. It needs to have a private plus public focus. Yep. It needs to be a policy looking at how we can reskill people that are working, looking at how we can update our education and bring the kids into this new future where, honestly speaking, I think the way that we teach has to change as well, and what we teach has to change as well. So there's a lot. It needs to be a much bigger dialogue, and it needs to be a more concerted effort to uplift society. And I don't feel that that's been happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's starting. I mean, so I'm hopeful because I do see some conversations starting. A lot of noise too, right? And a lot of fear mongering and a lot of this black and white thinking about, well, I hate AI. It's either yes or no, or no AI or all AI, and so I think that's where the quality of conversation needs to improve. We need careful analysts and voices that will say, do you know what, you can, it's both and, right? You can both be excited about the possibilities while being completely aware about the risks and addressing both at the same time. And people are going to play different roles. Some people are going to have to be, the canaries on the coal mines saying, hey, pay attention to this. And others will be kind of advancing with innovation. And you as a society, we need to come to a good balance. And honestly, I feel like some countries are doing a better job than the U.S., but hopefully we'll get there as well.
I like your hopeful tone. We need that. I need that. So related to that, Just Capital had released a report not long ago that looked at how do corporation CEOs view the use of AI in business, and shareholders as well as regular people like you and me. And one stat jumped out, which I'm not surprised, is a substantial majority of the public agrees that CEOs of large companies, they do need to do more to make sure that we're using the technology in an ethical manner. In the same report, it also shows that majority of the leaders are absolutely excited about the use of the technology, whereas the rest of the people a little more cautious. So taking those two stats together, do you think that we'll actually get to a point where we can bring the gap closer in together, where we are more thoughtful about how and where we use the technology and bringing more people in to address some of the concerns? Or is that wishful thinking?
So I would say it's not wishful thinking. I am believing in the open future, which means things are not decided and not determined, which means we have agency. We can. We need to build the future that we want. I'm not being naive about forces in society and what individuals can do and all of that, but I do believe that it's not determined. And so we can build responsible AI. I think, to me, the ideal is where we eventually drop the word responsible and AI is always responsible. It's just a fait accompli. It's like, what do you mean not responsible AI? Like all AI is responsible, right? And we're not there yet. I am absolutely, clear about that. But the incorporation of responsible, practices is so key. In fact, that's where I see my business going next year, is really focusing on AI risk management and governance. I feel like it's time. At first, there was a lot of hype, and even talking about that felt like, people needed to be convinced that AI could be used. I don't think anybody needs to be convinced of that anymore. What they do need is a clear understanding of risks, opportunities, and truly how to prepare for that, right? And so I do see. I hope to make a contribution to that. I know I'm not. There's many of us that are going to be working for that. So because of that, I do feel hopeful, but also aware that a lot could go wrong. We probably will have a few, headline events where AI goes wrong in the next few years. It's going to happen, and then the question is going to be how we respond as a business community, as a society. Are we going to just shut it down and stop it all? Are we going to double down on it? Are we going to slow down? I think slowing down is probably a good idea, honestly. Don't think a lot of people in boardrooms are listening to that. But and if that's all it comes to, that we have a few events, I mean, God forbid, I'll hate for that to happen, and I'll hate, for people to get hurt. But if that's what it takes, then maybe that's what we need to slow things down.
I do think we need to slow down a little bit, or at least think before you throw something on the wall, right? It's not so much so we need to do something, we need to do it yesterday because, the bank down the street is doing XYZ, or
Right.
the analyst is telling you, oh, your shareholders is waiting for X and your board is waiting for Y. It needs to be something that makes sense, and you need to think through it. I love what you said about risk and governance. That's the one thing I wish we would do a little bit more, is to have the guardrails in place. I hope we won't see any headline news coming up in the next 12 to 24 months, although I almost feel like it's inevitable, the rate that we're going. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we've already seen yellow warning lights, right? We've seen quite a few instances where third-party systems got brought down for various reasons. The interconnected risks that we see in our ecosystem is increasing, and so something could and might happen. Let's hope that we have the plan in place to respond. We'll see. Looking ahead, let's end with a more thoughtful note and hopefully an interesting note. What does your crystal ball tells you, and what gets you excited?
So on the excited part, since we kind of cover risk, is I'd love to see, and I think it will happen, is AI really improving healthcare, and that will not come through insurances, hospitals, or the government, but through some med tech entrepreneurs out there doing some interesting thing. And what I think the promise that AI and data can provide for health is the ability of customized care, customized health plans, customized wellness plans, not health plan as an insurance plan, but truly kind of how do I stay healthy? How do I live longer? And I feel like that's already happening. And I think AI is only going to accelerate that. And I feel that that's one part that I'm excited, as well as, believe it or not, the environment. I do think that as we kind of are able to automate some of these things, some of these non-essential things, I think we could have more people working on environmental problems, on global warming issues, and just working more with systems, with modeling, and with greater capacity to model out different variables. To me, I feel that can help us make better decisions there. As long as AI also doesn't become an energy hog that is a risk that we're contending with. So again, two hopeful things with some caveats, but definitely those are the two things that I'm seeing that I would love to see in the next 3 years to really blossom.
I would love to see more of that. I do worry with all of the announcements with the data center builds that we're putting so much resources and so much focus just to build.
Yeah.
In some ways, it reminds me of the .com days. Showing my age. It feels like at those days, right, the early 2000s, late 90s, we were rushing to build data. All the fiber optics were rushing to build capacity because of all the internet traffic.com companies. A bunch of companies popped up, anyone who can have a website, anyone who can does some sort of e-commerce. And as it turns out, we had too much capacity. We had too much of that. And we had to reset. Looking back, that was not a fun time, but it was a necessary step in some ways that bring us back to, okay, what exactly do we need to do with the technology that we have, and how can we go back to the basics and look at, we need to turn out revenue. So maybe we'll go back to that resets. I don't know. We'll see. I am hopeful for the innovations that you're talking about. Personalized care is something deep and dear to my heart. So fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll see a more thoughtful, innovative future. And until then, thank you so much for joining us, Elias, and look forward to seeing you next time in person. Hopefully spend a little more time together.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Until then, for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of One Vision. We'll talk to you next week.